like the sexy backdrop you got.
So I'm actually streaming through a cinema camera. So it should be like extremely sexual.
Yeah, it's very clear.
I don't know if it'll yeah, you can
Yeah.
yeah, so it's kind of bougie, but whatever.
You're
It
good.
works. The only thing that sucks is like the laptop's way over here and then like camera's over here, so it's like kind of weird, but
You're good.
whatever. Yeah,
Sounds
as long
good.
as it sounds clear.
Yeah, sounds good.
I have it set up for YouTubing, so it's like it's super weird. It's already set up, so like why would you not be an asshole and just,
Well, if you can go the extra mile, then I mean
I played Nintendo with my buddy on like his live stream the other day, and he was like, "No, anything's fine." It's like I had this set up anyways from like doing YouTube shit. Sorry, I'm like bashing the fuck out of this mic. And so I did that, and he was just like, "Yeah, it's gonna look a lot better than everyone else's webcam." I was like, "Okay, I guess we're good then." And he's like, "Yeah," he goes, "I think we're definitely good."
Yeah. It's like when I first started doing the podcast stuff, it was like right when Corona first started. So like the only thing I could get my hands on was this like made in China HD webcam. So that's that's all I'm working with.
Now they have fucking finally, thank God for coronavirus, they've added they've added software so you can plug in like a DSLR into your computer and use it as a webcam.
Oh, really?
Finally. Yeah, Canon.
Because I have a super nice camera, but I thought you had to have like all this fancy like extra setup to hook it up.
Yeah, what brand of camera?
I think it's a Canon.
Yeah, look it up. There's like Canon released this software that you can basically now hook up that camera as like a webcam. You have to you do have to have like I have the thing. I can't move it, but this box. That's what I use. Yeah. So I bought it because I figured for my work, like people would want. I mean, I think I'm going to use that I'm using it for YouTube, but for work, like once a production starts, like already the first shoot I did, they were like, "Wow, it'd be really great if we could watch the shoot remotely." And I'm like, "You could, as long as there's like Wi-Fi and like somebody to like babysit it." And they're like, "Oh, we don't have the budget for that." But I'm like, "All right, well, just for next one, So, and we also shot outside or something. But anyways.
So what's new? What's going on?
Just working. Corona. Just surviving, I guess, is more accurate. But
has it like fucked with you at all? As far as like
I lost so much money. I had an IBM job set up. I had hospital ads set up. I had all kinds of stuff set up that's gone and never to return, I'm sure. So that's been stupid.
Just because you can't go there?
They just pulled the budgets. Healthcare advertising got crushed because all the hospitals lost a ton of money this year because they couldn't do elective surgeries for months. So when that happened, like they basically all pulled their advertising budgets. Was like the first thing to go. So like tens of thousands of dollars gone, and then the IBM ads, they just didn't want to film. And then because of COVID, I think some other people switched around jobs. So now all the people we were talking to aren't there anymore. So it's like that sucked because those were going to be really, really. They're going to be fun to do, and they're going to be probably pretty lucrative, but also like it was actually really interesting work, which was the most exciting part.
Right.
That was the part I was most excited about, was that like it was actually good storytelling and good projects.
Yeah.
So like dealt with that, and then just somehow fell back into working for newspapers all summer, and I didn't take any of the government aid. I didn't think it was going to be as long. I mean, even the worst case scenario at the beginning of it was like June. And I looked at my bank account and I was like, well, I'm good till June. So that's what I said. I was like, I can get till June or whatever. And I was like, well, do I really want to deal with the government if I don't have to? Like, because it was like, it's forgivable and or whatever, And
I'm like, to what degree?
Well, forgivable is a question mark. Me not taking it is not a question mark. So I was like, and now I don't know if I regret that, but I definitely have some friends who like seem to be like buying gear and stuff. And I'm like, well, I guess you guys I should have done that. 'Cause,
Taking that free money train.
Yeah, exactly. So who knows? Maybe next year at tax time, though, I'll be singing a different tune. I mean,
well, that's what I
I don't
think.
regret it.
I don't know if they've said yet what they're doing, but it seems like all that money's just going to come out of people's taxes.
Oh, yeah, I knew that. That was another reason I didn't want to take it. I'm like, some schmuck is going to pay more in taxes next year because I'm going to play Xbox, or I don't know. It gave me incentive to work harder. So I was just like, it's not free money, it's tax money. So I was like, I think I'll just wait and like try to avoid it. And I got through. So I'm like, I guess I'm okay. So
there was something you said about the IBM stuff that like kind of resonated with me a little bit, is like do you have that where basically like you have an in at a company because you like made a relationship with somebody, and then that person leaves, and then you have to like, you're fucked, you can't work with that company anymore unless you like weasel your way back in?
Hands down.
Yeah.
Sadly. Yeah, no, hands down. That's what it definitely feels that way. Are we recording it? I was going to change something on my camera. Oh, we are? Okay.
Yeah.
I won't change it.
I can edit anything out, so whatever you want to do.
Watch this. It'll just totally change. I'm just changing the color profile because I realize I'm in like a really weird thing.
Now you're super bright.
Now I look like I should. That was like edited footage. I'm like, oh shoot, this is gonna look super great. So explain the magic of movie making, everyone.
Yeah.
I'm a nerd and recorded this on a very expensive camera, so you're welcome.
Hey, I gotta say it's been the best quality audio and video I've had so far. So
yeah, I had to be like shameful that if I'm going to do a podcast, and not use a professional camera, I'd probably look like a jerk to people who want to hire me.
Yeah,
like you're doing filmmaking like why is he using a flip phone?
I know.
No, I obviously work in the creative field. So I work in I started in photojournalism and like newspapers and stuff, and then ended up, pretty quickly knew that like newspapers are dying, right? Or at least not a good place to be. This was like 9 years ago. So when I was leaving school, I kind of like kept my eyes on everything, and I started doing filmmaking, I started doing video, I started doing everything, and definitely started working for corporate clients and stuff. And yeah, it's hard because like either at newspapers or at a corporate client, like you have somebody you're working with, and if that person changes departments or changes desks or whatever, it's pretty rough because like now your connection's kind of gone, and it stinks because what do you do? I don't know the good answer, but it's definitely like pretty hard to be like, let me new person, I assure you I'm worthwhile to like talk to or whatever. Like, so this will be my first chance. Like, this IBM job, which I don't know if I'm allowed to say who it is, but this computer company job that I was supposed to do, I'm hoping that I can like talk to someone else in that chain and hopefully, because the pitch was good. They liked the project, and the people above the person I knew better, or the person that we had worked for before, I guess, as a team, they left, but the other people were excited about the work too. So I'm hoping, and the products haven't gone away. It's not like the product doesn't exist anymore. So I'm like hoping like this can transition to, well, of course we still want to do this work or this project.
And like when do you hit them up again too? Like, do you wait until everything's totally back to normal, or you just keep bugging them every so often?
Yeah, right. I don't know the good answer to that, but I've been I've been like waiting, and now I'm kind of seeing people do stuff again. That's kind of made me think like, okay, I don't know if we can do it yet, but maybe we can at least start having the conversation, because I think like in the middle of COVID, it was kind of like asking about doing stuff like that. It was kind of, I don't know. It was probably, it's probably like walking up to a car crash and being like, so how's your car insurance? Like, how's things, client of mine?
How are you feeling right now?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you still think those restraint systems are overrated? Like, I don't know, but so that's kind of what I was thinking, is like, maybe it's a good idea to wait a little bit. But I think people, and it's also like, I think they're based in the Northeast and I'm in Nashville now. And so like down here, things are a different tone and a different place. I think obviously different places of the country, different parts of the world are all at different places. But it feels like now things in the Northeast are kind of not normal, but you know what I mean? it would be less weird to be like, hey, so your hospitals are full of dead people, but would you mind signing up for me to go film in Texas again or wherever?
Yeah.
And there's technology like this stuff. So now we can work remotely with a 3-person crew, and they don't have to send other people. Like, we can walk into the room, drop a camera, hook up to the Wi-Fi, and set up and be like, okay, here's the feed, and start feeding them what it looks like and feeding them frames live, so they can literally set up a Zoom call or a FaceTime or whatever and just say like, hey, this is what it looks like, which is a hugely weird thing, but also pretty interesting. I know people are already doing this, so it's kind of neat, but it's also like kind of weird too. But having that possibility I didn't have this in February. I had a slight need, but now I think it'll be just a line item I'll add to the invoices of, live output stream, $500 a day or something,
Yeah. No, I've noticed that with a lot of companies that basically because this happened, it shook up like their norms of like, oh, we have to have daily meetings or we have to do this and that. And like all these companies that had these huge buildings of just salespeople. And now they're like, oh, we're actually way more productive now that like we don't do meetings and people are like working from home. So like a lot of our distributors and stuff, they're like, oh, we'll just have like all the sales staff works from home now. And like, we don't have to pay for this massive warehouse or whatever else. And it's kind of like, I feel like it's new norms now.
Yeah. You guys deal in physical products. So have you guys felt like supply chain constraints or changes?
Dude,
I can't imagine. Like I'm all in the ethereal. The stuff I need is obviously around me. Like I got my computer, I got my cameras. I'm producing non-tangible products, but like it's affected that a small bit. There's a bunch of little pieces and stuff that I need that I can't get, but like it's kind of more like missing the extra air conditioning on a truck than it is, hey, we don't have tires anymore.
Yeah. No, like we're like good and ready to go. Like we could work and do anything we want to do. The problem is like getting apparel blanks. Like, it's funny because we just did a podcast on my other one where we talked about to SNS, which is like one of the big wholesalers, and they were basically like, yeah, the manufacturers are trying to keep up because they're like taking 50% capacity or whatever to make masks. But they're like, yeah, they basically come to terms to say the most important apparel sizes are like small through extra large. So they're like only making those sizes, or they're making very small quantities of anything bigger. Well, the problem is everybody who orders like small through like 4X. So we always have to tell every customer like, oh, there's no 2X, 3X, 4X in stock. And they're like, well, the owner's a 3X. So, and I'm like, sorry, like he's going to have to lose weight or he's just not going to get a shirt. Like, so that's the biggest thing. Like we haven't really noticed anything with inks or anything, but just like getting stuff in general, like all the fulfillment, like our industry went from like, okay, yeah, everybody's just doing bulk orders. And then it was like, oh, everybody's doing fulfillment because all these people that are touring and all this other stuff are home. And now it's like, oh, let's just do fulfillment and like send it directly to their fans, like all over the place. But now like fucking the post office is like crashing or whatever.
I know.
Like, so like packages are missing all the time.
In my lifetime.
Yeah. It's weird. It's still, like I said, we're still fine. It's just like there's like extra pains in the ass every so often.
And the good thing is that you don't do direct to customer in person, which was probably the biggest thing that would get affected by this. Is that like, and that's been the hardest part for me. Like photography happens in person. Like, that's been the biggest stressor is like, I didn't realize how much of my work was like little things that just aren't happening. I mean, I did objectively, but like, if somebody asked me, I wouldn't say like, yeah, stopping events would be a big deal to me. And then I'm like, you look at the last 4 or 5 months and you're like, oh geez, like that's a lot of days I've kind of lost. And I'm like, so that kind of stinks, but you're
doing a lot of sports shit too, right? Like,
So I, in general, my normal years, I mainly focus on football. So I'll do the NFL and college football, and then I'll do like 20 NFL games in a normal year, and then like 6 to 10 college football games, and then I'll do a little bit of other things. So it'll be like a little bit of basketball, a little bit of this, some UFC, and you know what I mean? So it's like a small percentage of my year, but like the one sport I'm like always super focused on is football. And so this year, with everything being up in the air and the scheduling and everything, it's been really weird because like the first sport I've shot since this start, I shot soccer right before this started. That Nashville got a team, so I shot the home opener, which soccer is a terrible sport. But I did that, and then like 2 weeks ago I did golf, which I had never shot golf before.
Yeah, I watched your stories on that, and you were like, I've done so much walking.
Dude, it's and then like people who do it a lot were like texting me like, you didn't do any walking, like 15 miles. Like these people do like 15 miles in a tournament or in a day, and I'm like, you'd see that this course is very friendly, I guess, then, because I felt like I walked a ton of miles, and then I had a bunch of friends texting me like, that's not even that many miles, and I'm like, okay, sure, I hate myself, like I'm fat.
Like like I'd rather do
pounds
football
more than you.
where I stand on one side than
golf. You sprint in football, but you sprint 100 yards. And so it's like, oh, they threw a play that ended on the other 30. Okay, get there before they score the touchdown. But you sprint down the field. But,
so how does the whole NFL thing work? Do you just go, like you have, I guess, like a license to do that, or do you work like with them? Or
so I work for a client. So I work for a news client, and so they license all the photos. So they pay me to go to every game. And then
so they're covering your costs to go.
Yeah, so they pay me to go to every game, and then the benefit to them is they then sell my photos. That's how they make money.
Right.
So they're like a photo licensing. So I've always done it for Getty Images, which is obviously pretty well known. And then this year, I don't know exactly all of my schedule yet, even though the season starts in like a few days. But I'm doing most of it for Associated Press Images, or AP Images, which is kind of like the commercial branch of the Associated Press, which is like a news organization. So I'm gonna be there kind of shooting more, advertising's the wrong word, but more like purposed photos. So I'll probably be a little less worried on like the touchdowns and stuff, and a little more worried on like today's, like, Derrick Henry's wearing this stuff or something. I don't have a firm understanding yet, but like I'll be a little more focused on like making sure I get like a set of players or a set of equipment, or I don't know, whatever that is. So so I'll be probably shooting it a little bit differently. And then the big elephant in the room is that none of us, at least to our knowledge, not a single photographer will be on the field this year. So we'll all be up in the stands, which is a whole nother planet of confusion, because none of us have ever shot football from the stands before. So it's going to be really weird. And it seems like a really small difference, right? It's like 10 feet up or 8 feet up.
Right, but you can't move as much, right?
Can't move. We don't know how much. That's another unknown. Like it'll probably be stadium to stadium, but yeah, we could easily walk in and then be like, yeah, you got to pick a spot and stay there or whatever. Like we don't know. I don't even know where in the stands. I literally have no idea. Like no one's told me anything. And again, the season starts in a few days. So don't have a clue where I'm going to be. I know I would put almost 99% certain it will be in the stands. But it's also like the angle. Like if you're looking at somebody's face, right? Like we like to shoot, like I like to kneel or sit the whole time, right? And if you're looking at my eyes, right? And like right now I'm like looking straight at the camera. So if I was looking up, so if the camera's not going to move, my head will. Now you're looking at this, like you can see my eyes. So if I'm like running with the ball, you can like see my eyeballs, and you can see under my visor, my helmet, my hat, you can kind of like, we call it like a hero shot. So if now you shift that and you're 8 feet above the person, well, now you're going to be looking at like this the whole time, and you're gonna like see like the visor and the brim, and it's going to be a weirder picture. Like it's going to change the way pictures look a lot this year. And the backgrounds all change. We always like super geek out on backgrounds. And like a good background is like a really like a thing you're trying to get all the time in sports photography. So now we're going to have totally different background.
Like nobody in the stands, basically.
Yeah, because there's gonna be nobody in the stands, so you can't really shoot wide anymore because that's gonna look terrible. I guess allegedly they're gonna put ads all over the seats, of course, which like Supercross does that, which obviously my friends and I go to. So like Supercross, they do that. They, for safety, they'll rope off the bottom. So different reason, but same idea. They'll put ads up around on where the seats go. So it's just gonna be weird. It's gonna be really weird.
Now, do they give you like, I want these specific shots when you go, or do you just use your own artistic, like, I think these will look good, and then?
So generally I just go and do whatever. This year, because this new client will be more of a shot list. So there'll be more of a, I don't know if it'll be like specifically like we need this player doing this, but I think it'll be like, hey, this guy and this guy went to college together. This guy and this guy are childhood friends, or I don't know, but like that's one of the examples they gave. Or like this dude's the brother of this guy on the field, or I don't know. So that's the thing they said that they might have to look out for. And then it'll also be probably like brands, like, oh, this dude's a new Nike guy or something.
Get a picture of him rubbing his Nikes.
Correct. Yeah. Like that's literally a thing I do every year is look for people tying their Nike cleats. So I will be doing that again this year. So because one day I'll get that Nike sale and you'll see me pull up to the shop in a Tesla. I'll be like, I got that Nike money, baby.
So are there like other things like that you look out for that you're like, if I could get this shot or I could get this specific thing?
It's more the personalities, and it's more like just trying to get them really clean or emotional. I mean, sports photography was explained to me once, and this doesn't apply to like the commercial side, but sports photography is explained to me as it is either a sense of place or peak action. Like that's the two things you want in a good sports photograph. So, a sense of place could mean the snow, the rain, the fans, like the golf course last week, I had the golf, like the Phil Nicholson with like the Ozark Mountains behind him. Or it's that peak moment. So it's the helmet crunch, the blood, the sweat, right, the UFC punch or whatever. So it's kind of like, those are the two things I'm generally looking for. But when it comes to like a specific player, for a year there, like when Tom Brady came back after Deflategate, I was looking for Tom Brady near footballs. Like, anything of him near football.
Anything of him like slightly squishing a football more than it.
Literally, I was like, yeah, like, was there footballs with New England Patriots logos on them? I was shooting them. Like anything I could find that remotely was like Deflategate-y, whatever that was. So it's like him and like the trainer, and they're checking out footballs before the game. Oh, you better believe that photo. Yeah, that kind of stuff. So every week when it comes to anything, but when it comes to football, like every week I listen to the Mina Kimes show, which is a podcast, it's like a football podcast. I listen to Pardon the Interruption and a few other things. And I basically just try to get up on what the storylines might be. So that's right. At the most basic level, it's injuries, trades, acquisitions, but then it might be like, okay, Dan Snyder and the Washington football team are now kind of embroiled in maybe a cheerleader scandal. Like that would be a story that like, okay, the Redskins are coming to town. I'm going to shoot extra Dan Snyder. I'm going to talk Dan Snyder smiling, Dan Snyder sad face. Like I want to get those kind of things because I know the news is going to use them. So like that kind of stuff, a lot of that, or like a coach is on the hot seat. That's another big thing. So like week 10, week 12, when you're 2/3 of the way through the season and you're like, all right, the record's kind of crap and this is his third or fourth year, like maybe I will go to that press conference, or maybe I will grab a couple extra pictures of this head coach or get him with his head down, because that like in a week or two there's a good chance he might let go. So like Rex Ryan, when he left the Bills, I like the last couple of weeks I shot like every press conference. I went and shot anything I could extra Rex Ryan, because I was like, at the end of the season he's probably gone. And sure enough, like a few weeks later he was out of there. So
right.
So yeah, you're kind of just trying to find what storylines might be important. And then it's just other stuff. Like, so this year I'm going to be shooting like masks or rubber gloves or I don't know, anything
stuff that's relevant.
Yeah. So like I shot high school football for the first time in like 7 years or something, or 5 years probably, the other day. And it was like, there was a ref with a mask on with like the rain coming down. So I was like, I just kind of focused on him and a few other things the whole night. Because I was like, well, that's what they're going to run, is like that kind of football photo. Like they don't care about the high school football team. They care about COVID and football.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah. So you have this stuff with like Getty, but like, it seems like anytime anything's happening, like current events wise, like, weren't you all over that? What was in Nashville or near Nashville, wasn't it? Where there was like a storm went through last year or whatever?
Yeah. And So I started out in like photojournalism. That's what I went to school for at RIT up in Rochester, New York. And so I went for photojournalism. So I like was going to be a newspaper photographer, was the plan as I left school.
You were going to be Peter
And
Parker.
Pretty much, yeah, dude. I need pictures of Spider-Man. That was my goal. So that was my goal. And then, so I was an intern at a paper, and then I was like a part-timer at the Syracuse Post-Standard, and I freelanced for like a ton of papers. And that's like all I did was like work for papers. And then I like slowly shifted out of that into like more commercial work. So now I do like hospital ads, and I do, you know, branded content. So that might be working for YouTube or Spotify or whoever down here, Sirius XM, and like, so it's like a lot of like different things, right? And then now with COVID, all that stuff stopped. So I was like, the news clients still all knew I was good, and they were all like, you want to go shoot this? You want to go shoot that? And the start of that this year was actually the tornadoes in March. So in March, what, 3rd or 4th, a tornado ripped across like Nashville and a little town to the east here called Cookeville. And I'm living in Nashville, and the tornado came through and missed the house, but previous house, but missed where I was living. Went to the bathroom, was watching on the phone, and I was like texting a buddy, and I was like, hey man, like, what are you seeing? You know, he works at the paper here. And he was like, I don't know. It seems to be going through downtown. Like, he's on the east side, I was on the west side. So we were like talking about it. And I was like, well, like, do you think it's worth going out for? Like, what are you thinking? He's like, yeah, I'll probably go out. He goes, I don't know how serious it is, kind of thing. And I was like, all right. And so I'm like watching on TV, and it was like a real funnel went through downtown. I'm like, I might go out, but like, I'm looking at it as like a national news story. He's looking at it as a local. So local news, 100% they're going out. Me, like my only clients are national news. So I'm like, I don't know if this is national news. And then he texts me like 30 seconds later, and the alarms were still going off. So I wasn't moving, but like a minute, I text him, and I was like, hey, like, when are you heading out? And he's like, just let it pass through. Like, give it an extra 5 minutes. Sometimes these things are weird. And I was like, okay. And then like a few minutes later, I text him, and he's like, I just lost my roof. So his roof got ripped off. And so he sent a picture of like his roof that's gone on his very beautiful house. And so I was like, okay, he just lost a roof. That means it's taking off roofs. It's probably serious enough. So I called the desk, and they were about to sign off for the night because it was like 1 something in the morning. And so I called the desk. I was like, hey, can you just make me we call them MEIDs, but they're basically like it's like a metadata code that you can put in the photo files, and they sorts them on their end when you send them in. When I FTP the file and it sees that code, it sorts everything into a bin, right?
You just ultra nerded out, and I had no idea what you said.
Oh, yeah. So basically, all of our, I'll segue into ultra nerd. So these big news organizations, they have thousands of pictures coming in every day, right? So if you just relied on everybody to like just type in the right words, like that would be really convoluted. So instead, they make like these like serial numbers effectively that you put into your photo editing software, and so then all of your photos have this like
so they know they're yours, basically.
Correct. So like 701629K0 is today's assignment for the Nashville tornado. So if anybody types in that random code, it'll bring up all the associated photos. And then also on their end, they can then have a not text file, but through their system, they can go look up on their end, like, what is this code attached to? And then they can go in and say, oh, this is tornado, Nashville, weather, or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. So they made me one of those, and I headed out, and it was pretty bad. And then like, I'm from a small town. Like, I'm from just west of Bingham, or, you know, you're from Dryden, Binghamton area. I'm on the other side in Pennsylvania. Yeah. And like, so this little small town was saying they already had like 2 or 3 people that might've died. And I was like, it's 2 a.m. If they already think somebody died, like, there's a good chance they don't have the resources to actually know what's going on. So I drove out to this little town of Cookeville, and I spent like the whole entire day and night photographing in Cookeville. And it turns out they had over 24 people, I think, died. I never really, like, the number kept changing while I was there, but it was about 24, 25 people ended up dying from the tornadoes, which is an extremely high amount. So I spent the whole day there, and I went home really late, and I slept a few hours, and I went back, and they were still finding people the next day, which was a bummer. Yeah. But it was really, the nice part was seeing like the second day. Like the first day, obviously it happened at like 1 a.m, 2 a.m. But then the next day I got there at like 7 a.m, and there was literally thousands of people like in this parking lot where they had set to meet. excuse me, for like volunteers. So like thousands of people showed up to volunteer to help clean up this town, which is like probably, it's bigger than Dryden, but it's probably like a Wego size. It's not very
Yeah.
big. It's like, you know, high school. I think they had a community college or something there. And it's like, but anyways, it reminded me of like Binghamton or Cortland or something. It's not very
Right.
big. And so like they, or Owego or Cortland rather. And but anyways, there's thousands upon thousands of people from all over the state, it seemed, and other areas. And that was really, really cool. So it was like really exciting to see that many people show up. And it was just like, you watch like hundreds of people go to a property, like, or dozens, maybe 100 people go to like a big couple properties, and they'd be there for hours and they're still like cleaning up debris and cleaning up stuff. And I'm like, I can't even imagine like if that happened and you didn't have people, like strangers, to come help. Like that was like
Yeah.
really heartening. And then like the next week coronavirus happened and we all hated each other.
And we couldn't gather like that.
Yeah, and I thought about that. And there actually was another tornado in Chattanooga, like a week or two, like a few weeks later, and that was like a big problem. Was like, can people come help? Like, you know, like, is this more dangerous? So I actually went and photographed there for an insurance company, and like it was like an ad job for like their insurance agents, like showing how they're there no matter what and the safety precautions they were taking. But it was like, yeah, it was really hard because like you could see it was definitely not as many people showed up to help, which is like a super bummer because I'm like, man, seeing how many people were there last month and now this month seeing so few people, it was really hard.
Yeah. So a lot of those ones, like the photojournalist stuff, like do you just ever go like on your own and then like figure out who's gonna cover photos and stuff later? Or?
Yeah. There's stories I'll work on. I haven't done as much in the recent years just because I have been doing more of the advertising stuff. But when I was fresh out of college and in general, I would like kind of work on stuff and then try to pitch it. A lot of what I do now is I'll work on all the front end pre-production and kind of like write everything up and be like, this is what I think is going to be. And they kind of, now that I have enough of a resume or whatever, I can say like, you know, you can trust that I'll do the work once we get to that stage. Like I don't need to go prove that I can go make good pictures or a video. They know that. So it's kind of more like, hey, I think this is interesting. Should we go out and do this? That's what happened with the tornado. It was just super fast scale. Like I was like, this is a tornado. This is a major city. Send me out. We'll figure out what goes on tomorrow. And so, but no, that's totally a thing. And a lot of people that are like learning photography or getting into it in commercial or photojournalism, like, you know, showing that you're willing to go work and showing that you can like do it is like a big part of it. Cause like a lot of people can talk about doing, you know, art in general. It's really easy to say like, I want to do this art or I want to do this business or I want to do,
but actually doing it and putting the time in.
Yeah. I had a mentor who I met with and he said this quote and I don't like the dude anymore. He's a jerk, but he had a good quote. And that was, he said, you know, half of this industry is doing it. Like, don't tell me about the project you want to do. Don't tell me about the thing you're thinking of. Like, just go do the thing you want to do. And I took that to heart. And it's so true because I meet tons of, now that I'm like in my 30s, I meet college kids or whatever. And I kind of try to mentor them. And I'm like, yeah, that's great that you have this idea for this thing, but like, you know, and I'm sure you see it too in like design and stuff. It's like, oh, it's really neat that you like know some Photoshop skills or you know this and you'd love to do a design like that, but it's like, just go do the design, have it be crappy and we can have that conversation rather than tell me about the thing you want to make or want to do. Like,
yeah, every so often I get interviewed by somebody or something or whatever, and they'll be like, tell me about like, what do you feel is the most important thing about starting a business? And I'm like, dude, like, I know me specifically, like I fucking hated school. I was not good at it. I tried to go to college and I fucking sucked at it. I just spent all my financial aid on like band equipment. And like, I've never been like a dude that's been like, oh, like super smart at like all this stuff. But it's like, I feel like 90% of the reason why I'm where I'm at and what I'm doing is just because like, I just fucking do it. Like,
yeah,
I just spend all day and night working on it. And like, luckily it's my passion. It's like what I'm super stoked about. And it's like probably the same with you and like nerding out with like camera stuff. And it's like, I feel like that's most of it. Like you don't have to be talented. You just need to have the work and the drive to be like, this is what I want to do, and you fucking spend a ton of time on it. And I hate seeing people all the time that are like, oh, I'm going to start this business. And then you're like, what business? And then you can tell they're just trying to do it because they think they can make money at it. Not necessarily like, I want to do this business because I'm passionate about it. They're just like, what can I get into where I can try to fucking weasel some money out of somebody? And it's like,
yeah. And I totally agree. And it's like, that's like the best way of saying it is it's like, if you're going to get into anything, I'm sure that's true of like investment banking or cell phone sales. It's probably the same truth. I just don't do those things. But like, if you want to do it just because like you're going to find like a hop or a skip over something to like, oh, right. I don't even know what cartoon it was. I was like South Park, like A, steal underpants, B, C, profit. Like, and I think that's how most people like see like creative work. It's like, oh, like I like graphic design, profit. It doesn't work that way. It's like the B is hard work. It's just like work.
It's like that graphic design. There's that graphic design meme or whatever where it shows that guy like handing somebody a design, and he's like, oh, $500 or whatever, and he's like, $500? It took you 5 minutes to do this. He's like, yeah, your money is paying the like 10 years it took me to get to the skill to make this in 5 minutes.
Yeah, like, exactly.
Like that's what I'm worth. And well, that was one of the things, like you literally rolled right into one of the things I wanted to ask you about, is just like people starting out. I feel like in your industry, it's kind of like that in ours, where like anybody can go like buy a speedball kit or buy like a manual press and be like, oh, I'm a screen printer. And like you can easily make a website and be like, oh, I have like an established screen printing shop, but it's like really you just fucking bought like a press like a week ago. But for you, I feel like anybody who buys a camera that's slightly better than a cell phone camera is immediately a photographer.
That's 100% true. As an aside, I used to work at a screen printing shop, which I don't know if you know or if I've ever told you.
No, I don't think I did know that.
I used to work at a print and design shop in Buffalo on the weekends when I was going to RIT, and we didn't do shirts. We did gig posters.
Hand flat stock stuff.
Flat stock stuff. So I used to work there, and I didn't pull anything. I think I pulled like probably 2 posters. I signed thousands of posters. I had to go down and write the name and the number like for days. I like was like a shop manager kind of guy, but I made like minimum wage and it was fun. But anyways, that's like, and I'm sure that's true of like web design or graphic design or anything. Like the barrier to entry for filmmaking and photo is like so low now that it's like anybody can do it. And the thing, that's great and bad. Like it's great because there's new groups of people, demographics, age ranges, everything that can like learn this and get into it sooner, right? So like a big thing in our industry is like there's too many white dudes, there's too many of this, there's too many rich people or whatever. And it's like 20 years ago, I can't even imagine what it was like, because it's like a camera system was thousands. Each roll of film was a couple bucks, plus processing, plus you have a lab, so you had to live where there was a lab. Like when it was all film, it was like, geez, I don't know what the barrier entry was, but like you had to be pretty into it before you could make any money at it.
And now you can take decent photos on a cell phone.
Literally I've shot assignments on phones. Like it's like insane to see how far things have come. But it's like, so anyway, so it's like the barrier entry keeps getting lower, and it's like, while that's terrible in a lot of ways, and people that are dumb charge less, and it just shoots you out the bottom of the industry. What's kind of cool is that you can get a lot more voices and a lot more experiences entering the industry, which is also like a big benefit, which makes us all work harder. But that being said, there is still a lot of that, like just kind of crap level at the bottom. That's all like pretty low end kind of, I'll do it for $100 kind of thing. Yeah. And that's really hard. And it's really hard when you're starting out, because like you don't really have anything to separate yourself from those people. But the one thing you do have is your point of view. And that's like a lot of things that nobody really focuses on. They focus on camera equipment, or they focus on, they focus on a lot of things that are like money based or technical based. And it's like, take the tools you can get access to and find a way to like make pictures or films or whatever that people can like relate to and like see that you made it. You know what I mean? Like if I can hand you all of this camera gear. I can hand it to anybody, and even if they were as good as me or better than me, they're gonna make a different picture than me. Better or worse, I don't know, but like it's gonna be different. And that's like the thing that like when you're starting out, like, again, that's the point of like, just go and do it. Like if you just go do work, then you can go have a mentor or a client or a friend help you make it better, or
Right, they help you refine it.
Yeah. So like that's the cool part. But it's like a lot of people like starting out, they look at like they're at the bottom of Everest and it's like, well, I'll never get to the top of Everest, and it's like, well, of course, but like if you don't climb, you won't get to the first base camp and you'll freeze to death.
Yeah.
But it's like you got to do something. But that's the biggest thing for me, is like I like to help out a lot of college students and stuff whenever I can. And I'm, as you see on my Instagram, I'm always like going for the clout and like trying to help people out and doing those things, and it's fun, and I like to do it because it's fun, and I like to do it because it's marketing. It's my account,
right? But it's also like you and me both, with like you're helping out people with photography and I'm trying to help people out with screen printing. It's just because we're passionate about this thing.
Totally. Exactly.
You know what I mean?
But yeah, the point I was going to make though is like, I'm passionate about it and I want to help people, but it's also like, if you come back to me and you have a bunch of crap pictures or no pictures or nothing to show me or nothing to talk about, like I can't what am I supposed to help with? Like talk to you about the theoretical nature of like, like whatever. But it's like, if some kid tells you like, I'd really like to do screen printing, and you're like, neat, what have you done? And they're like, nothing. It's like, have you done design? Oh, I've been doing design for years. But this is what I want to do. And it's like, well, you need to make something. And that's how I feel about photography. Yeah. It's like, if you come to me with a project or a series of something, or even just work you've done, at least I can look at it and I can tell you like, these are the things you need to work on, or these are the things that are really successful, or these are the things that are really great. I'm sure you see it in your industry, but in my industry, it's like, especially on Instagram, but like people worry too much about the marketing and the hype and less about the actual work you do. And that's like super frustrating as a creative, because sometimes that works and it drives me up a damn wall, because it's like, I'll see people that have no business getting contracts or work, and they're like, but they're flashy or they're slick, or, they talk in the third person or whatever on the internet.
Yeah.
And
I was like, just literally just thinking about that yesterday with like YouTube stuff, because it's like I know we have the skill and I know we have whatever, and I'm trying to think like, how do I get this out there a little bit more? But then I also don't want to cross that line of like YouTube, where it's like every thumbnail to my video is like me going like, and then you like outline it, and you know what I mean? It's like, right. And then they'll put like you in focus, and then the background will be like a red circle of like, guess what the fuck is behind me? And it's like, you know what I mean? It's like, I don't want to cross that level.
Another I don't want to purple like question mark.
Right. Like I don't want to turn ultra douche either. So it's like, it's hard.
I completely agree. I joke. I got a friend in St. Louis who's like, he's pummeled the hell out of this mic. I got a friend in St. Louis that struggles with that too. He's got now a lot of followers and everything, but he comes out with pretty good content. But he's like actually researched this. Like, does the thumbnail matter, basically? And his research says 100%. Like, do the dumb thumbnail.
Yeah.
And he's like, play the game, because guess what? If they get to where you're liking the content, then that's the goal. Then play the game. I don't know what to do with it. I feel the same way you do.
I just feel like I'm losing part of my soul when I do stupid shit just to get to that point.
I do too. I 100% agree. I hate playing these games. Like on Instagram, photographers will post pictures of their gear, or they'll post pictures of their video cameras, and they don't post the work. And it's just like, right. And so I'm like, for me, it's like, well, I could do this, I can get a bunch of followers, but then do I care? Because the 10% of my followers that are actual clients will be turned off by it. Like, what's the goal? Is the goal to make money, or is the goal to look good on the internet? And I don't know the answer. I mean, for me, it's to pay my bills. I'm not rich, and I'm not going to be rich ever. But I think it's like,
until you get that Nike shoe.
Oh yeah, then once I get that Nike shoe, dude, I'm gonna outline every picture of me, and you'll just see pictures of the back of my cameras like for the rest of the year, and they'll be black and white, and I'll be like, "What up, clout, baby? Clout 2021, the new currency." Yeah, having that clout and having that followers is like that like dictates getting these deals. And like, I would kill to be sponsored by a brand. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have any sponsorships, but I can't imagine it would be like if like somebody came at me and was like, hey, we'll send you a couple grand worth of tripods every year and give you a little bit of cash if you shout us out like, twice a month or something, and they're yours to keep. I'd be like, my buddy got a $6,000 tripod for free, like for free. because he has Instagram followers, and he's good at doing that. Like, I understand why they gave it to him. I'm not hating on it.
Right.
But it's like, it has actual real world value, and that's where I'm at, like, trying to grow it a bit.
I'm trying to do that, but I'm trying to do it as respectful as possible without losing like dignity.
As much as we can poke fun at this, I think people like you and me, who are a lot more genuine about our craft and the business side of things, what's really frustrating is this stuff does have actual value at some point financially. And when you it's frustrating to watch people who, I won't say are less talented, but maybe I guess I will say less talented.
Yeah, say less talented
get stuff for free. Yeah, like it is frustrating. And I won't say that without saying that what they're doing, their skill set in running social media, is a skill set. Like, that is a skill that I don't possess as well as they do. But it is really frustrating to watch like a 12-hour camera review of another camera that came out this week that the person got sent a month in advance, and it's like, we use this camera for 4 hours and it's really good. Thank you, brand. Like, and I'm like, yeah, great. You told me.
You just need to take more booty pictures, I think.
Dude, I know. That is a swing and a miss on my career that I don't do that. It's kind of funny because when you're young, like, everybody assumes that's what you do. It's like, oh, you must just take pictures of hot ladies all day. Ooh, yeah. Like, those are always creepy dudes. And then it's like, or girls you were trying to date when you're in your 20s, like, oh, you probably take pictures of girls all day. And it was actually, I take pictures of old white dudes from newspapers all day, but kind of the opposite. So, but that is another tip for photographers. Yeah. You want to make money with photography, get pretty good at making old white dudes look good, because there's a lot of old white dudes that are businessmen, and they or newspapers will pay for good pictures of old white dudes. So
with Nike,
which I now joke with Nikes on. That's the real winner. If I can get an old white dude with Nikes on, then I'm getting my Tesla. That's my goal.
Dude, sounds like you want a Tesla.
I do want a Tesla. How can you not want a Tesla?
Yeah, that's true.
Have you test drove one?
No.
Don't.
Because it's just going to make you want one forever.
It's the fastest car I've ever driven.
The funny thing is like, when I was younger, I never grew up with money or anything. And when I was younger, my like dream vehicle was like to have like an old square S10, like stick shift.
Oh.
And I always wanted one of those in, like, I always wanted one in like high school.
Sweet.
Right. Well, now that I have like some money and I can actually have like a good like bank account and a successful like business and stuff, like I have a lease, like I have the Highlander or whatever, but like I still want to buy that S10. Like, dude, I could probably get a better vehicle now, but I still am like, fuck, I want that fucking S10.
Get a clapped out S10. Put a V8 in it. Put drag slicks on it.
The funny thing is that you're saying that is that when I think I was like just turning 16, there was a guy in town who had a maroon square S10, big ass drag like slicks on it. It had a V8 in it and it had a wheelie bar on it. And I told my mom, I was like, can you get me that? I really want that. And she was like, you will be dead in that. And like, and it's probably true because I would have just fucking ripped on it as hard as possible.
There's a body shop and dirt bike mechanic in Newark Valley that I took my car and my Jeep to get fixed for body work. And his son had an S10 that meets that description. So it'd be really funny if it was Doug's son's S10 that you're describing. It sounds exactly like it. I never saw this truck, but they were like, had swapped multiple V8s into it. It just did wheelies everywhere. I'm like, dude, it's the American dream. I mean, my like dream car is a Volkswagen Corrado, which is like a old 1980s two-door like Volkswagen. And like, again, just like I
feel like it's just like
where we afford it, but
right. I feel like it's where we grew up. You know what I mean? Like other people are like, I want a Maserati and all this other stuff, and we're like, no, we want as neck a vehicle as possible.
Dude, I would kill for a B16 swap CRX that's clean in yellow.
Dude, that's
YT49 yellow CRX with a B16 swap. Like, that is dream car. And it's like definitely the most white trash Fast and Furious was in movie when I was in high school car to want ever.
Yes. We're on the same wavelength right now because I was just going to say that, like, everybody's going to fucking deny this who was our age in high school. Gosh. But when Fast and Furious came out, everybody was reading those fucking magazines and everybody wanted an old Honda or they wanted a fucking, but my thing was like again, I was too young. I was like just trying to like get a car. But like I was like, man, if I could find a CRX, like I really wanted a CRX.
Yo, my buddy has a CRX in his garage with a B16 swap turbo that he just doesn't touch. It's in pieces. And I've like tried to buy it like 27 times and it drives me up a wall because yeah, we would go to like the Carlisle import weekend in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, which like I now know that some of the guys that were with us were doing meth because where we're from. One of them pulled out the transmission in a Honda in the hotel parking lot all night with just hand tools. And I'm like, wow, how do you do that? Now 10 years later, I was like, oh, methamphetamines. That's how he did that. That's how you do that. You do it with methamphetamines. I figured it out. So that was good. That was my high school trip. But yeah, we were all, like Hondas were everything. Hondas and then Toyotas and Nissans. It was just like, that was what, so yeah, still like
back to
I will
our story.
One day own a clean Honda CRX.
Yeah,
hands down.
You're either going to have a clean CRX or you're going to get that Tesla is what it sounds like you're going to go for.
And by the time I can afford either one of them, they'll probably cost the same. Like, I'm sure that there'll be like 8 CRXs that aren't wrecked or have a freaking body kit on it. Yeah, in existence. And, and they'll both get like really good gas mileage. So either way, I'm saving the earth. And like you, I have a F-150. Like I have a brand new truck.
Yeah.
So it's like like most people's dream car is like a brand new vehicle. It's like, oh, I got that. I want a clapped out 89 CRX.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. I have a car. It's brand new. It does everything I want it to do. And I've never thought I would have a brand new car. And I'm just dreaming while I'm in this brand new car of this piece of shit that I want way more.
Wouldn't it be nice if the right vent just kind of rattled a bit? It also, or the CD tray just goes good when I go over train tracks.
Well, we grew up with like vehicles that were fucking. My dad drives stuff that's like complete shit boxes, and I just remember being a kid, and he's like, "Oh, we're gonna go to the fair today," and it's like, "All right, cool. Can you get in the wheel well of the back of our station wagon so I can shut it so that I'm not charged like for 6 kids? I'm charged for like 2 adults." And it's like that shit that I'm like, now I'm like getting older. I'm like, fuck, that makes sense. Like I want to do that.
Yeah, you were living the life. That's what it was. I grew up in Athens, which is a little rinky-dink farm town, and they got big because of fracking now. But it was just like we were not poor. We had like a pretty comfortable living. My dad's like an engineer. But I would now, and I never even known, you know what I mean? Like, like we had the same cars my entire life. We had a minivan and a station wagon that we found out after many years the floorboards had rotted out of, and the only thing keeping our feet from going onto the highway was the carpet.
I've had that.
So like, so like, I don't know, kind of grew up like high class white trash. That's what I think of,
I have this great story, and I'm glad this is an opportunity to talk about it. But at one point, I had a car that blew up, and my dad like found a car. Like, I don't know, he drove by it, found a car, and my dad, it was like, to me, it was very important in my life that my dad was like, I'm going to buy you a car. Because I knew he didn't have much, you know what I mean? It was like, he's like, I'm going to buy you a car. So he takes me to this place, and it's like off the train tracks, and this dude has like 2 cars out front. So obviously it's not a car dealership. It's just some fucking redneck with 2 cars. And we get there, and the guy's got one of those like grayed over eyeballs where it's like, obviously something killed this guy's eyeball. Well, anyway,
he's lived a hard life.
Right. He hasn't been living great. So anyway,
a weathered old man came out of the front door.
It's this Buick Skylark sitting out there, and it doesn't look pretty. It is what it is. So me and my dad are asking. He has a sign on the front of it, like spray painted, $100. Like, this car is $100. You could get more in scrap than this guy is selling this car for. So anyway, he's walking us through it, and he's like, my dad's like, oh, when was the last time you changed the fluid in it? He's like, oh, I've had this car for, I don't know, he said years he's had this car. He's like, never had to change a fluid in it. I'm like, what do you mean never had? That's not something you brag about. Like,
wearing these pants for years, never had to change them.
So I was like, all right, that alone was like, I can see why this is $100. So anyway, we kept asking about different things about the car, and he kept coming back to the fact that there was a cell phone in it, but it was the kind that was like huge in the middle, and you would pick it up and there's a big wire on it. So he's like, yeah, it's got that cell phone though. And I'm just like, I don't give a fuck about this. Like, I can't use this cell phone. Like
it literally probably doesn't function.
Right, it doesn't function. It's just like this big beige fucking phone in the middle. So anyway, it comes down. My dad's like, "All right, whatever, we'll take it." Gives him $100. Get in the car. We just go over those railroad tracks, and the muffler falls off immediately and like hits the road. It's stuck with me, and it will be with me for the rest of my life. My dad fucking gets out of the car, reaches down, grabs that cell phone, fucking rips it out of the middle, takes the cell phone and the cord, and wires up this fucking the exhaust with the cell phone. And then we go down the road, and he looks at me and he's like, "Glad I had that cell phone." It's just like, God damn it. So I drove that car for like a couple years, and it was a huge piece of shit. It had because the muffler fell off, it had super exhaust leaks, so you had to drive it with the windows down or you would die. The driver's seat was like broken back like 2 clicks to where you were super gangster. Like you were leaning back really far.
No matter what,
you had to be gangster in that thing. And the window wouldn't go up, like the crank wouldn't go up, so you had to actually grab the glass and like shove it up.
Yeah,
I had a wedge in my car that I would wedge it into the frame of the door to hold the glass up.
I think I've ridden this car.
So I was going to Broome. I was going to BCC at the time with this car, and in order to get if you put the window down, you had to like gently let it down into the door. But the only way I could get it up was with needle nose pliers, and you had to be ultra gentle grabbing the glass to get it up.
To not break the glass.
Right. So one of these days, I'm like in the parking lot. It's like winter. I'm getting ready to go in, but I had the window down, and I grabbed the needle nose pliers and I grabbed the window, and it just fucking boom annihilated the window. So not only am I driving this huge piece of shit car, but now I'm going to work at Grande's to make pizza. And I took a pizza box and I like cut a slit out of it and put it in the door. So not only am I gangster leaning in this car that's just fumes are pouring out of, but I have a tiny like slit in the cardboard for me to look out of.
I assure you, officer, nothing is a ride.
Right. Like totally normal. So back to our story about wanting white trash vehicles. Back then when I had that, I wanted an S10 square truck.
Dude, you need to go get it. I'll find one down here. I'll bring it. I'll tow it up with my truck, and you'll have a super clean Alabama or Tennessee title square body S10. They're probably down here for like $800.
You ever see one on the side of the road?
You want like the 80s, like
square, no
proper
round
one, not the 90s feminine lines.
No,
because in the 90s they designed all the trucks like to sell more to women. I guess
they were all rounded.
That's why a lot of the trucks are really rounded.
Yeah, I want square as fuck.
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
Ultra non-aerodynamic.
I wanted to get 6 miles per gallon in a 4-cylinder.
Right. So let's go back to your photography real quick before we go too far.
We'll just talk about S10s and CRXs till.
What's one of the most like inspiring jobs you've ever done that like you were like, oh shit, this is crazy?
I take a lot out of every job. There's always like, I think that's like a really good skill set to have, is to find a way to challenge yourself or like be excited about everything. I'm totally guilty of not doing that, but I'm pretty good about challenging myself on everything. So even like the weirdest thing I'm not into, I'll find a way to challenge myself. So in that way, I like get a lot out of everything. The coolest thing I've ever done was I went and filmed the Olympics in 2018 in South Korea. I think that's hands down the coolest thing I got to do. Who gets...
Did you do that for a company?
Pretty rare. Yeah, so I worked for an ad agency in New York City, or in Brooklyn, Dumbo, Brooklyn, called Laundry Service. Cycle is the specific wing, but Laundry Service Cycle. And they were hired by an ad agency or a network to produce social content. And so this ad agency hired me to do social content for this other network. So it was pretty cool. So it was kind of like a mix of advertising, but also like photojournalism. And basically myself and a buddy, he got hired, and then he was like, they're like, we need someone else that can do, edit video, run around, like understands photojournalism stuff. Like, who do you got? And he was just like, oh, this dude. So, and this is when I was living in Athens. So like, I wasn't like in New York City or some, I was living out where we're from. This was like 2 years ago. And so for me to be able to like be called in to fly to Korea from the Elmira airport was pretty neat. Yeah, that was pretty cool. I actually flew out of Philly and I flew back to Elmira. Delta hooked it up. But the point being that it was pretty cool, and it felt pretty good to be validated that like somehow me from small town was like the best candidate to go to Korea, which was pretty cool.
I feel like stuff like that really hits home with us. You know what I mean? Like we worked really hard and we're getting recognized for what we're doing, not from where we're from.
Correct. And I think like as much as I'm sure you felt this way growing up from the Twin Tiers, or whatever you want to call it. Like my town's called the Valley, and it's like kind of,
that sounds cooler than where I live. Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
I live in the village of Whitney Point.
Oh, yeah, that's less cool. I'm from the Valley, which is just a nice way for saying like where the two rivers meet, Susquehanna and Chemung. But anyways, so I'm from like, Meth Valley is what it was nicknamed when I was growing up because we had so much meth distribution.
Yeah.
But being from a little place like that, like growing up really sucked, I thought. Like I was born in Rochester and then we moved there when I was a little kid, and I spent, until last year effectively in Athens. And so being from there like kind of sucked. You don't get all the art training, you don't maybe get the best education, you don't get to see fancy stuff. I never went to New York City until I went to New Jersey when I was in high school to go to a soccer game, and I think I didn't go to New York City until I was like 21. And you know what I mean? So it's like, even being from the Northeast, like I didn't do a lot of those things, never went to big art museums. But so that kind of sucked to like have all these small town experiences kind of seemed like they weren't useful growing up. And now that I'm, 34 and I do this for a living, I realize that like all that work ethic, all that
came from that,
grit, and the gift of gab that, I call it the Bradford County gift of gab, but like I can talk at a wall now for like 10 hours a day if I had to.
I'm the exact same way.
Dude, that's a lot of business. Like that's a lot of business, is being able to talk to anybody about anything.
Yep.
I always joke with people that aren't from there. I'm like, if you put a truck bed between me and my best friends, we'll sit there until we die. Like hands down. Like I will sit over the back of an F-150 and talk to you about anything, like for eternity. Which is really helpful when you got to talk to like a PR agent about nothing, and they're just like on their phone in their stupid Nashville outfit. Now they all come here and they all dress in Nashville clothes, which is really funny because everybody like from New York City and LA, like they probably dress like normal human beings there, which normal for like New York City and LA. So they're dressed like total weirdos, but they come to Nashville and they're like denim and like the stupid hat, that hat that I don't know where they all get them, but like it's like the ladies Stetson or the men's Stetson. And it's super funny.
It's amazing.
But anyways, so now I got to talk to these people though, and a lot of them are really great, but like some of them are total airheads, and like you got to talk to someone about nothing for 2 days straight or a day straight, and it's like really nice to be able to just, you can get along with anybody, you can find a way to get through things, and also like for me there's a lot of gratefulness in it. It's like I don't have an ego to a fault that I'm really bad at marketing, but like when clients do link up with me and start working with me, they're like, we like that you just show up and do the job and like go home or whatever, like you're not gonna like try to make it about you or whatever. That's what a client told me last year in a meeting. They're like, so many of the people we deal with have egos, and you just kind of do the work really well.
You do exactly what we asked you to do.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you have good ideas, you do all the things, like, but like you're not gonna come to the table and be like, I am this artist, or I don't know. I mean, there's some of that, but I don't know how to say it. But like,
I know exactly what you mean.
This client, this client was getting across. She's like, a lot of people in the artistic industry basically have an ego, and I don't, or that's what she was saying. So, so it's really interesting when you're from a small town and you get those aspects of life maybe a little more than maybe the people from the city do, which is kind of cool. And it's also like, getting a job like that in general was a huge honor. But to be like, I went to you'll get a kick out of this, speaking of S10s and CRXs. So we shot for like 24 days, right? So we flew into Korea 2 or 3 days before the game started. We filmed in Seoul, and then the games were about 3 to 4 hour drive east over in Pyeongchang. And so I had brushed up in my Korean, 감사합니다.
Brushed up.
Oh, dude.
Like you fucking knew any Korean before that.
안녕하세요. 감사합니다. So I think
that's all you know.
Very tasty. All I knew was hello, thank you, goodbye,
and this very is very tasty.
Oh yeah, dude, I'm fat. Like I had to be able to say the food
Right.
was good, which the food was very good. But it was really funny because everyone like it made a big difference when you're talking to people when you're like, yeah, mashi soyo or whatever it was, and they're like, oh, dude, this
Yeah.
fat dumb white kid understands that
Loves
means
our
this
food.
is really good. Yeah, so it was like it got you through a lot of figuring out the bill. But anyways, so we went there and we were there and we basically circled around the Olympic Games, filming social media features, filming interviews, a little bit of events, but mainly we were like, oh, there's medal presentation night for Sweden. Sweden's one of the countries we cover. Go talk to the people in Swedish. I got to use my German from high school, which was really cool. Very badly, but I was able to there was like some German athletes that had no English, and I was like, yeah,
you're like
then or whatever. Like
you're like,
so
this is
broken.
very tasty.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I was just like, guten Tag, medal is sehr schön, yeah? Yeah. And I was like, okay, I got it. I was speaking like the most broken German. But anyways, so we did this, and then the last day, we were creating stuff, and obviously you're on the Korean time zone. So there was like the last day, basically, the last 2 days, there really wasn't a purpose in making more stuff because we were like ahead or behind or whatever so far that it was like, well, we're not going to release content for the day after the Olympics or whatever, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So the last day we were like, there was 3 of us. It was the 2 of us and then our like director, producer lady, who was amazing. And she, I think, took off that day back home to Australia. And then we stayed and flew out like a day or 2 later. But it was really cool because we got to go to the gold medal men's hockey game and not work. We just hung out. And I wore a Dale Earnhardt t-shirt. So,
well, hell yeah, Intimidator.
It was all like Russian people and Korean people and like fans. And there's one idiot in there with a Dale Earnhardt t-shirt, like,
very tasty,
yeah.
very tasty.
Machi soyo, raise hell, praise Dale, baby. So yeah, that was how I spent my last day at the Olympics, which was really fun.
That's awesome.
But it does. I don't know. I mean, I assume people from other areas like appreciate things like that, but definitely being from a tiny little town, it's been pretty cool to be blessed with like some bigger opportunities.
No, I agree.
And I know it sucks if somebody's watching this and they're from a small town, like getting in the art community is really hard.
But the nice moral of the story is just put the fucking work in.
Yes, precisely. That is exactly the lesson. It's like, eat the shit sandwich when you're 21 and do it the hard way now. And it will be, I don't know if it'll be good for you, but like it will work out. Like it'll work out.
It'll be very tasty later on.
Yeah, mashisoyo. Yeah, it'll be. I'm probably saying it wrong this whole time.
I hope you are.
Korea's like, this son of a bitch is saying pizza is not good or something. But yeah, like I think that's the one thing. Whenever I mentor kids, it's like, someone's gonna be richer than you, someone's gonna be more privileged than you, someone's gonna be smarter than you, someone's going to be everything more than you, most likely has more money or richer parents or more opportunities, right? Those are the 3 things in the art community or any business, but art community specifically, creative industries. Like that's what I run into. Like leaving college, there was a ton of kids that went to RIT whose parents were like, hey, you got an internship in New York City that's effectively unpaid, we'll pay your rent for the year. And it's like, my parents, I remember I got an internship offer at the San Francisco Chronicle to do this big video documentary storytelling piece. And my professor was like, they need somebody, and they asked, and you'd be great. And I was like, oh, I'll tell my dad. And my dad was, no fault to him, was like, I can't afford to pay your rent in San Francisco. Like, are you kidding me? Yeah. It's like $2,000 a month, but it was hard. And there was a bunch of kids whose parents had the means to do that, which is no fault of them. But anyways, the point being that there will always be someone with more of those things. But the one thing that you can dictate is how hard you want to work.
100%. Yeah.
You can put in more hours. You can read more books. You can go to more libraries. You can reach out to more people. You can send more emails. You can do all the things. And that is like kind of the thing that has worked for me, is just like, send that extra email, send that extra bid, send that extra pitch, do the extra call, do the extra like whatever it is, like you can find a way to do it, or go learn the new skill set. I mean, that's the biggest thing now, is with so much learning you can do on YouTube.
Like the internet in general is just stupid.
I can't imagine. Like, I mean, I'm not old by any means, but 10 years ago, I mean, there was tutorials and stuff, but you can type in literally anything into Google, and there's probably a YouTube video or a very thorough article on how to fix it or do it.
Yep.
And I don't know. In college, I would look up things, but man, is that seemingly different. Like,
yeah. It's just funny,
it's amazing.
you're saying that, and there's somebody who said this to me and it always sticks in my head, where it's just like, you don't ever have to like ask a question. Like, you know, you could be in a group of friends and you're like, oh, I wonder what this thing is. And then you all just sit there and you're like, yeah, I wonder. It's like, you don't have to fucking do that anymore. You can literally pull your phone out and be like, what's the answer to this? And it's like, I feel like if you literally wanted to know the answer to anything, all you have to do is like look it up and do a little bit of research and you can know. But there's just so many people that are lazy. They're just like, oh, I don't know. And then they just don't do anything.
Yeah, I think like, I mean, I think in general, in any career path, like most people, I have a friend who's not in this career path at all, but he's like, most people want to go put in 40 hours, drink beer on Friday, and, you know, go to the lake. And like, if that's you, that's fine. But like, this whole landscape of jobs is not for you. Like, that's all there is to it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's no, like, that's the one thing that like, I'm a psychopath when it comes to like, I'm always trying to find the next job. I'm always trying to find more work. I'm always not good enough, to a fault. Like, I 100% should be more proud of everything I do, but the payoff
drives you to do more.
Correct. Exactly. So as much as that is all awful, and hard to deal with mentally, it also like makes me better at what I do, which is, I don't know if that's a win, but you know what I mean? Like, that's like the way it all works out, which is like, yeah, it's super, it's hard to be in a stage where you can mentor people. And like, that's the most frustrating thing, is a lot of people you'll meet just don't want to put in the work. And it's just, all creative fields seem to be like a sport to me more than like a business or an art. And it's like, and that's another thing that's really hard when you're in college or not college or whatever you're doing to learn it. It's like, oh, I'm so inspired and I'm going to wear my beret and like read these books and like, I'm going to be an artist. And it's like, then you leave school and you're like, it's a business, mother effer. Like, you know, like all of a sudden it's like, oh no, they didn't pay you. Well, you better get a lawyer, or like, you know, it's like real quick, this shit hits the fan and you got to be a business person. Exactly. And like, a lot of people aren't sorted for that, which is, I don't know the answer to that, but I think, you got to be a psychopath and willing to work really, really hard is I guess the short answer of all that. But
so the answer to my question was the Olympics.
Oh yeah. Sorry. Again, gift to gab.
No, that's good. Forever. Do you have a favorite photo or a favorite video you made?
Yeah, I do. Video has been the Dan Collar Wolf Brigade video I made last summer. I'm like super stoked on that. Dan Collar's a professional bike rider, BMX rider. I rode BMX growing up. Used to go to East Coast Terminal and like places like that all the time. And like, that's what we. Yeah, no, definitely like forever. Well, RIP East Coast Terminal, but so that was where we spent every weekend as kids, and that was like kind of my life in high school and into college. And then I lived with a bunch of BMXers in college, and it was a big part of my life for a long time. And so then I got away from it. I'm older. I'm too fat to do anything on a BMX bike anymore, but it was really nice to go back and work with someone I've known since he was a kid and like do this video, and we want to do more stuff. For me, the video is kind of about his rehabilitation from injuries and how he, it's combined with this Wolf Brigade, which is a gym up in Rochester that's really cool, in my opinion. And they worked together and rehabbed him, and now he's getting stronger and better at bike riding and all these things. But it was really nice for me because last year I broke my collarbone, and then like this was like the first thing I really did after breaking my collarbone was like doing this video project about injury and recovery, which was really, really exciting. And then as a quick aside, my favorite photo is one I took in Flint, and it's on the cover of the book I made there called Welcome to Flint. And it's a guy holding a pit bull's head in his hand, like a lot, like a pit bull puppy. He's like kind of caressing it. And in his other hand, he has a huge stack of money because he's playing dice, and he's like a drug dealer that I was photographing. So you got this like really juvenile, like cute, innocent puppy getting like fostered and held by this drug dealer. And it's kind of like a metaphor for how the drug dealers pick up kids and get them into the industry, whatever, the lifestyle, I guess. So like that, so that was kind of the metaphor I was going for, is like, these kids are young and they could be good kids or they could be bad kids or they whatever, and you need money, and some guy comes over and says, hey, 13-year-old kid, you want to make $20, run this, down to Fifth Street or whatever. And anyways, so that was the metaphor I was going for. And pretty proud of that photo, which is now like 2013, I think I made it. It's a really old photo, but it's still like, just, I usually don't like attach to things for a long time. Like usually I like make work and I'm like, that was last week's work, now I need to make new work. That's like the only photo that's still like, I'm like always like, yeah, that's the best one. So
I saw something really I can't remember where I saw it, where you said that one of your favorite things that you did was the Santa thing.
Oh yeah, dude. Santa school is a trip. You should go.
So what was it? What explain what it was, I guess.
So these are real things. I didn't make this up. Like, I think I need to preface this in saying, like, this is a real place that has real things happen. So there's multiples of them. Of course, the Harvard of Santa schools is the Charles W. Howard Santa School in Midland, Michigan. Everyone knows that, duh. The Charles W. Howard Santa School, it used to be at Olean, I think, or something, like over by Letchworth Park in Olean area. But it moved to Midland, Michigan, and that is the oldest Santa school. And it is a 3-day workshop where people can come and learn the art of portraying Santa Claus, with topics that include breathing techniques for the best ho-ho-ho, to hand placement during photographs. Not
on the butt.
It's not only that, but like the reason they wear white gloves, I'll let you know some Santa secrets. White gloves, because they're clearly visible in the photo. So if you're going to hold a kid, you just want to make sure your hands are visible in the photo. So they like talk about, it's not even about doing something inappropriate or not doing something inappropriate. It's being sure that anyone who looks at the photo doesn't even get that thought in their head. Because like, if some girl's wearing a big, like little girls wear those big Christmassy dresses or something like that. It's like, hands are out here or whatever. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't like in a sinister way at all. It's just like,
right.
We don't want like that. They like treat it like not like a deity, because a lot of them are really Christian people, like really Christian people, like Christian iconography on everything, which was really interesting to me, because growing up in a Christian household, Santa was like bad. And so these guys are all like super Christian and they're like portraying Santa. So that was really interesting. But anyways, like all these people like genuinely wholeheartedly, like this is an art form of portraying Santa, and it's there to make sure these kids have the best holiday season they can have. It's like super wholehearted, just totally amazing, like positivity. And it's like infectious, dude. Like they all sing Christmas carols all the time and stuff. So you'll be like, like that's going amazing. Across the street. Yeah, it's just like you can't stop smiling for 3 days. Like you literally can't. Like it's like I am a miserable person generally. I'm anxious and nervous and pissed at something at all times. And I go to Santa school and I'm grinning like a child for 3 days.
Just like the
world is all gonna be fine. Oh, dude, like totally, And they're just like they're cracking dad jokes, but like Santa dad jokes the whole time, and it's just like. This rules. This is so awesome. And then so that's Charles W. Howard. That's like
the Mecca.
That's the Harvard. So then I went to another year, same client, different place. I worked for AARP for these, which is really fun to like go for AARP to photograph old guys being Santa. But then I went to there was one in Denver, and that was run by a corporate entity that's like they like run like 700 Santa Claus locations in malls across the country and world. So they like provide the suit, and they're very much like that's very much like a corporate training, and nothing wrong with it, but a different flavor. But it was really funny because you tell people like oh, it's first ever to Santa school. I'm like, oh no, actually I've been to Charles W. Howard twice, and some of them would be like, oh, you like.
Yeah.
It's just
you're
like
that guy
like
with the fucking
like
you're that guy with the wine like going
yeah, no, I'm just like I'm sitting over with a cognac or whatever, just like I don't often go to Santa school, but when I do, I go to Charles W. Howard. It was definitely bougie, and like some of them had been, but it was really funny because like some of the younger people, or younger being like in their 50s, but like some of the younger people that hadn't been to that school yet were like, very nice. It was really funny, but yeah, like Charles W. Howard like sells out every year. Like it'll go to capacity, but they had to add a second set of dates now. But yeah, dude, there's just things that restore your faith in humanity that we all have like a lot more in common than we don't. And they're really rare when you work in the world of photojournalism, because you're generally covering negative days in people's lives, more so than good days, I've found anyways. So it's like when you get those assignments, you get those moments, it's like really cool and really fulfilling and really exciting to be like, oh yeah, like most of the world just wants what's best for everybody else, kind of vibe, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
And nothing's happier than Santa Claus. So
so plug tell me about your podcast and your YouTube channel.
Oh, dude, yeah.
For
so
people
YouTube
who want to get it, because that's the thing too, is a lot of people who listen to these are like, you know, like me, where they have screen printing shops. But I feel like photography is a really important part of it if they want to show what they make. So
I know.
Tell me about your podcast and your channel.
Yeah,
so people can learn from you.
So I have so I've got my Instagram, obviously, which is just Brett in Real Life, which is the worst username, but Instagram won't give me back my real name. So Brett in Real Life. And then on YouTube, it's just Brett Carlsen with an E, BrettCarlsen. And I kind of do a lot of like gear reviews and tech tips and stuff on there. So that's a bit more probably what people would be looking for. And I'm always open to like teaching anything. So if somebody follows on there and is like, hey, can you talk about this? Like, I'm happy to make a video for them. And then I got a podcast that I started this year that I've been meaning to start forever. And I just interview photographers. It's supposed to be a more diverse group than just sports photography, but there's been a lot of sports photographers on there. But the idea is it's basically like photojournalists, sports photographers, documentary, basically the stuff I do, people in my fields. And we just talk about how they got to where they're going is a big part of it. Like, you know, whether that be college or teaching themselves or whatever. And then we get into like just some like fun stories and kind of, you know, just kind of like talk about the career. And the idea is to just kind of get stoked. Like that's kind of like the idea is to get the creative juices flowing, and there's not really like a motive. I know I listen to some podcasts and it's like, we're going to talk about copyright registration this week. And you're like, oh God, like, all right. I didn't want that. I just wanted to be like, hey, like listen to this for an hour, get stoked, find someone cool to follow on Instagram, and then like go from there.
Yeah. Same.
I get really peeved about people on like social media, like fake, like shouting out people, like, and there was a lot of that the last couple of years. It's like, let's change the algorithm, man. Let's like this picture so I get more followers, but act like I'm stoking this dude up. And then like, so I got really peeved with that. And I'm like, this doesn't do anything. It's just like you know, bad wording. But like, it's just like, you know, it's just like a lot of whatever. And I
love how the people, hold on. I like how the people listening are not going to know what you just did, but to me, I appreciate it. Like those people.
Yeah. So it's a lot of that. And it's just like a lot of people blowing smoke up each other on social. And it's just like, and I get why they do it. And I think some of it's probably from a good point of view, but it's like, it's just like, I just wish more people had self-awareness to be like, yeah, just say it's a business. Just say what you're trying to do, the thing you're doing. Like, you know what I mean? Just be honest. Like, no one hops on Instagram and be like, wow, out of the goodness of their heart, they shared my picture. It's like, no, they're getting you to look at their account so that that person shares it back and you tag them. And like, it's like, we all get it. So instead I was like, screw that. I'm gonna make a podcast. So I'm gonna take hours out of my day to shout out somebody else. And so it's like, if I think this person's cool, here's an hour of them talking about how cool they are. And I'm going to edit it down so they sound even cooler, you know, or whatever. Like that's what I felt like. And it's a way to, again, teach people. Like I went to a really amazing photo school, but a lot of people don't. So that's the biggest thing that's been cool about it, is that a lot of college kids that go to state schools, or, you know, not that state schools are bad schools, but not like quote unquote photo schools, or not like the RISDs and the RITs and the whatever. I've gotten a lot of message from those kids, and they've been like, you know, this is really sweet to hear these kind of lectures or talks, because we don't get that at our school. You know, like we got a couple photo classes, but I'm mainly doing journalism. We got a couple photo classes, but I'm mainly doing this or whatever. Or
big
art.
Booty photos.
Yeah, exactly. That's all we do. It's just pictures of big booties, and we're hearing about other things than big booties. But yeah, so it's nice to hear that like people are learning. That's like that's kind of the real goal, is share information.
Yeah.
And I think like a lot of us answer the same questions over and over on the internet. So it's like, if there's another resource for people to go to like hear that, like, hey, you got to work real hard. Then, you know, that's
really the moral of this podcast, is that you can do awesome shit if you just work real hard.
It is.
Not that I want to be fucking cheesy with like, you know,
No.
all this stuff, but it's like, it's true. That's the truth of it, is that if you want to do cool shit that you're passionate about, just fucking work hard at it.
I mean, the first thing is you got to do it. I mean, it's like you got to work really hard at it, but like I'm sure you didn't have a full-time business with employees day one.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Like you said, I'm going to learn how to do this, or I'm doing this. I'm probably going to work at XYZ job and do this on the side. And for me, it was like, I had to go work two and a half jobs through college to go get through college, you know? And now I have loans too, but like I was learning photography every which way I could. From every, you know, YouTube or blog. At the time it was like Blogger and Blogspot and stuff, and I was reading blog posts on them every day, and then also going to class, and then for a while just working full time. And like you're hustling and doing everything because you know, like, this is the thing I want at the end of the tunnel. And if you're not that dedicated or you don't want to do it, then like just skip it. Like that's fine. Like it's not a loss if you don't end up being a graphic designer, being a web designer, being a photographer or filmmaker. Like there's no shame in that, but like just know that like the people who are successful are the nut jobs who are like, oh, it's Friday, I think I'm going to keep doing this instead of going to party, or oh, it's Sunday, I think I'm going to do this instead of watching football, or like those are the people who are going to succeed. And you can be one of those people, or you can say like, you know, maybe just a 9 to 5 is cool, or maybe this other job is cool. And I have friends who went through an entire degree at various different photo schools that people would kill to get into, let alone pay for. And now they do like real estate, or they're a nurse, or they're whatever. And that's totally cool. But it's like, it's nobody's fault but theirs that they're not successful in this. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know. That's my soapbox, is it's like,
Yeah.
It ain't the degree, it ain't this, it ain't that. It's like, you know, those things all help and they'll give you an advantage. But there's so many resources and there's so much stuff out there that you have the best degree, the best parents, the richest everything, and all the gear in the world. And if you're not dedicated to it, like you're still gonna end up, you know, selling houses or something. And vice versa. Yeah. And I got friends who are, you know, we're working at restaurants who make movies for a living now, you know, like literally. My one friend was a real estate agent and he decided he didn't want to do that anymore. And now he works for, like, we met at the Olympics, like, and he was literally a real estate agent less than 10 years before then. Like and literally insane, like how, and he just said, I want to do that instead of this. And how do I learn that? And
just learned.
And it's just, if you're just like, wow, like, and I feel like an idiot that I went to school.
Well, hey, no, hey, I don't want to go too far into this, but that was our generation though. Like that was when we were kids. Everybody was like, you have to go to school, you have to go to school. And now it's like,
totally.
Now it's the opposite. It's like, are you sure you want to go to school? And it's like, the hell?
Yeah.
When we were kids, it was like, oh, we can't do Fast and Furious. We got to go to school.
And now literally, if we would have just worked on cars and filmed it with our phones, we would have had like a million YouTube. Like, can you imagine if all of our dumbasses were just like, man, I think I'm going to throw this whistle boy on this Honda. Like, like, Gary, what are you doing? I don't know. Like, literally, we'd all be famous. Like, like, I always joke, like, if we were born 5 years later, like none of us would have worked for a living. Like I watched Dude Perfect. Like have you ever seen the facility Dude Perfect owns?
I know. And
it's
they just like do
literally
trick shots.
As big as my high school. That's all they do is play with like frisbees and Nerf guns and stuff. And it's like Assassin's Creed brings you baseball cards trick number 9, and it's like great. And then you watch it and you're like, that was sick. And it's like, I just gave them money. But
yeah,
I like watch that stuff, and I'm like, in high school we had a buddy who went home every night and built wheelbarrows that we would ride down the hills on our lunch break. So we threw them in the back of his old F-150, again, you know, sweet truck, and we threw this wheelbarrow death trap, and he made the wheels out of like a printing press, like the big steel rings you'd turn. He had 2 of those in his dad's barn, and so he took those and he bolted them onto a piece of plywood and put a front wheel on it, and like we rode it down. It was absolutely, we all should have been dead. It weighed like 100 pounds, and I'm like, man, if GoPros and YouTube would exist, like we would have had a million, like just morons almost die. And like,
so you just explained Jackass.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
We were watching a lot of Jackass and CKY at the time. Yeah. So it totally made sense why we were doing dumb stuff. But like all this stuff, I mean, it's just, but you know, and then I get it all, but like you can hate on, not that we are, but you can hate on like those YouTubers and like say like, oh, they got lucky. It's like they didn't get lucky. They decided they were going to do something and they went and did it, you know?
Yeah.
So like
but
Dude
they're
Perfect
also
said,
like
we're going to
ultra
do something.
dedicated to it.
Totally. And yeah, change YouTube for photography, for graphic design, for lawyer, whatever. Like the people who are successful at it are just nut jobs that want to do it worse than everybody else around them.
Right. We're just all crazy people.
It is very true. Like literally, I question my sanity.
You're successful.
Most
You're
days.
probably a fucking weirdo.
I mean, positive of that. 100% positive of that. But
all right. Yeah. So the best place for people to check you out is Brett in real life.
Probably. Yeah. Instagram. I'm always.
What about website? You got a website with all your shit on it?
I'm new to the internet. I'm gonna check out Wix this week. No, I got brettcarlsen.com. That's where all my stuff is. You can see all my hospital ads, so I can come and tell the story of your hospital future client of mine.
Please let me take pictures of your hospital.
Yeah, exactly. No, I would be stoked to tell your hospital ads. No, actually, I can talk forever, but joking aside, like it is really fun telling those kind of stories. I know I'm like making a joke out of it, but like seriously, I'm sure you feel the same way. Like people probably think like metalcore band, best shirt client ever, and it's probably like nah, like corporate entity that pays on time and like loves doing stuff that.
I've probably done like 5 podcasts just about that, about how like we used to do fun stuff and now we do fun stuff that pays the bills.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. Like I would love to shoot like skateboarding and metalcore bands or hardcore bands
every day.
But like I'd like to also pay my bills.
Yeah.
And that's a lot more fun. Yeah. I'd like to like eat dinner and own a car.
Exactly.
But it's really funny that it's funny because people always like, that's another thing people always hit me up about, like, yeah, but I really want to like do like concert photography, or I want to really do like, you know, skateboarding pictures. And it's like, neat. Do you know anyone who pays for that? No, neither do I.
Exactly.
Yep.
All right, dude. Well, thanks for doing this with me. I know you had a tight schedule today.
No, it's fine. It's awesome.
But it was fun. We got a good laugh out of
it. That's for sure.
All right, dude. I'll see you later.
All right. I'll talk to you, man.
See ya.
See ya.